El Nino.
In 1622, the Spanish galleon the Atocha was on its fateful voyage across the Atlantic, carrying vast riches meant for the coffers of King Philip IV of Spain. The treasure, gold, silver, and precious gems, was enough to change the course of nations. Among the passengers was Victor Franco, a young but ambitious ambassador in charge of the treasure's inventory, whose meticulous nature had earned him the trust of the Spanish court. Though only recently appointed to this prestigious role, Franco had grand dreams of climbing higher in the ranks of the Spanish Empire. The crew of the galleon, a mix of hardened sailors, officers and slaves, was an uneasy one. One of the slaves, Juan, a native of the Caribbean, spoke in hushed tones of a prophecy. He warned of a great storm, a destructive force that would bring doom to the ship, a force he called El Nino. The crew dismissed his words as superstition, mockingly calling him mad. After all, what did a slave know about weather patterns? The cook, Alonso, a cruel man with a sharp tongue, ridiculed Juan mercilessly, jeering that the only storm he could predict was one in his own miserable kitchen. But Juan was not wrong. As they sailed deeper into the Caribbean, the winds began to shift unnaturally. Clouds darkened the skies, and the waves grew larger. The sea itself seemed to rage against the galleon, as though some ancient, wrathful spirit had awoken. This was no ordinary storm. This was the awakening of El Nino. Victor Franco, who had been busy with his accounting, looked up from his papers to witness the chaos unfold. The ship's timbers creaked and groaned as the winds howled louder, the sails flapping in a frenzy. The cook and crew scrambled to secure the ship, but their efforts were futile. The Atocha was no match for the fury of the storm. The hurricane came with a force that could only be described as vengeful, crashing over the ship with such violence that it tore the vessel apart. In the chaos, Franco managed to grab hold of a piece of debris. The cook, Alonso, screamed in terror, but it was drowned out by the roaring winds. Juan, the slave, clung to a broken mast. Miraculously, the three survivors were thrown ashore on a small, uncharted island off the coast of Florida. Exhausted and disoriented, the trio stumbled across the beach, each facing their own fate. The island was lush and wild, teeming with dense jungle, but no sign of civilization existed. Stranded, they were forced to rely on each other, but the tensions between them simmered. Juan, who had been the only one to speak of the storm, had been the object of ridicule. But now, as they fought to survive, the fear of the island's isolation and their lost riches drove a wedge between the survivors. The cook, Alonso, became increasingly paranoid and hostile, his arrogance now matching his cruelty. He had no sympathy for Juan, the slave he had tormented, and took every opportunity to belittle him. Days turned into weeks, and food became scarce. The relationship between Juan and Alonso worsened. It was clear that Alonso saw Juan as nothing more than a tool to be used, and Juan's anger simmered. One night, as the moon hung high in the sky, Alonso, exhausted and delirious from hunger, lashed out at Juan once again. In that moment, the slave's patience snapped. He lunged, and the confrontation turned violent. In the thick, humid jungle, Alonso's screams were swallowed by the night, as Juan silenced him with brutal finality. With Alonso dead, the island seemed even more desolate, and Victor Franco was left in a state of shock, torn between fear for his life and his growing disgust at the brutality he had witnessed. Franco knew he had to act. With no ship in sight and no way to contact the outside world, Franco fled into the jungle, leaving behind the corpse of the cook and the increasingly unpredictable Juan. The island had become a place of death, where the line between survival and madness blurred. Franco hid in the shadows, becoming one with the forest, and began to learn the ways of the land. He had no choice but to survive. though he couldn't escape the fear that the island was somehow cursed, its jungle haunted by the wrath of El Nino. Juan, meanwhile, claimed the island as his own. He spoke less and less, his mind unraveling. The storm had changed him, and his vengeance against Alonso had broken something deep inside him. Alone in the wilderness, he could feel the pull of something darker, something ancient. Perhaps it was the spirit of the storm, El Nino, that had claimed the lives of his comrades and sent him to this forsaken place. Or perhaps it was the island itself, a place where even the most rational minds could become lost. Victor Franco, now alone, made his way south. He knew the Spanish crown would never forgive him for losing their precious treasure. King Philip would surely execute him if he returned. So, he traveled deeper into South America, settling in the dense jungles of what would one day be called the Andes. There, he became a shadow of his former self, a man haunted by the storm, the wreck, and the horrors he had witnessed. But the legend of El Nino did not die with the storm. Whispers of the curse spread across the seas. It was said that anyone who sailed into the heart of the storm would never return, for El Nino demanded a price for its fury, and the island off Florida was its final resting place. Victor Franco lived out his days in fear, never fully escaping the storm's wrath. The treasure of the Atocha remained lost to the sea, its secrets buried beneath the waves. But for Franco, there was no treasure greater than the knowledge that he had survived, only to live with the torment of what had happened on that island. As fate could not predict, Juan was not alone on the island. It was inhabited by the Combay tribe, ruthless cannibals. They had been hiding from the storm on the sheltered east of the island. They ate Juan for 3 days, roasting him on an open pit fire. Victor had escaped a horrific death, and as the winds began to shift and the seas grew tumultuous once again, it was a darkness in the corners of the world. It seems El Nino was not finished with its torment yet. The end.